Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Edwin here, Pretty Green Vinyl Guy. Got a video idea here. This is following up on Dylan from Noble Records. He did a video on, let's say you're getting into vinyl. This is your, you've bought your Dark Side of the Moon. You've bought your, your Rolling Stones, your Who, your Beatles, your whatever. But you're new and you're looking for a new idea. So I'm going to give you 10 essential albums that I think you should buy to get your collection to broaden your horizon and find some new music. Now, to some people, these might be common. I don't know. And to some people, they'll be like, I've never heard of this before. So whatever, I'm trying to find a happy medium. Anyway, this is the first one. This is a guy called Brian Eno. This is Another Green World. This is one of his solo albums, maybe one of his better known ones. Brian Eno was a founding member of a band called Roxy Music. If you haven't heard of them, also highly recommend it. He had a solo career and then he did tons of collaborations with people like Robert Fripp. And then he became a famous producer, produced some of the biggest albums of the 90s. A lot of the latter U2 catalog as an example. Anyway, this is electronica, this is ambient, and it's freaking phenomenal. So find Another Green World by Brian Eno. Eno. E-N-O. All right, up next we've got a guy called Nick Cave. Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Nick Cave is an Australian singer-songwriter. Almost spoken word poetic in some sense. Great voice. Amazing lyrics and poetry. Kind of spiritual, maybe, in a sense. Just amazing. Like, it'll just draw you in. Just the power of what he's talking about. And huge catalog of music, been around for decades. Got tickets to see him in Vancouver in October, so hopefully this COVID-19 thing is sorted out by then, because I've never seen Nick Cave. I don't think he's even ever come to Vancouver, so I'm super pumped. But anyway, this is a great album. This is kind of in three quarters of the way into his discography. Skeleton Tree, I think this was rated album of the year, maybe the year it came out, which I can't remember. But anyway, and then maybe you got to dip your toes into a little bit of jazz. This is a guy called John Coltrane, and this is maybe one of his most famous albums. I mean, he had so many good albums. This is Love Supreme. I picked this one because it's easy on the ears. It's easy to get into. This is a Japanese pressing. Again, if you're starting your collection, look for these obi strips. These are indicating that the record was probably made in Japan. And the Japanese, they had a unique way of pressing records so that the sound quality was really clear. Not a lot of background noise, not a lot of distortion, just so you can hear all the instruments. So super good for especially a jazz record. So Coltrane. I'm jumping all over the place here. We got a British band called XTC. This was their album Skylarking, which was produced by a guy called Todd Rundgren. Also, that's another name you can check out. He produced many, had a career himself, was in a band called The Nas, and I think he produced The Cars as well. Anyway, this is Skylarking. This is a classic 80s Brit rock, I guess, Brit pop. Before the whole Brit thing took off with Oasis and stuff, these guys were sort of in the 80s, late 70s and 80s. They had a run of fantastic albums, The Black Sea, Making Plans for Nigel, Skylarking is this one. Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed now. UVW. Can't find it. I'm under pressure. Anyway, XTC, Drums and Wires. Oh, that's the one. Check out any of those albums. This is a post-punk band. from Scotland, I believe, called Wire. This was Pink Flag. This is a pioneering album of its time. If you haven't heard of Wire, highly recommend. This is the one you need. They have a pretty vast catalog as well, but this was the one that put them on the map. You can get this as a reissue. Fantastic album. Definitely a must-go to. Sticking with the whole Brit rock thing, we've got a guy called Paul Weller. He fronted a band called The Jam in the 70s, early 80s, and then went on to form the Style Council, which kind of combined... So the Jam were kind of punk, pop punk, kind of little bit of R&B in there. And then he kind of got into the whole jazz R&B mix, and he did the Style Council with a guy called Mick Talbot, who was a really great organ player. And then he had a solo career, still going today. Got recently put out an album. This is his masterpiece. This is Stanley Road. This is a modern singer-songwriter, great guitarist, great storyteller, kind of in the nod of the Kinks. If you like the Kinks, you'd like Paul Weller for sure. Yeah, if you're not familiar, I know in North America, virtually unknown. In the UK, legend. The Mod Father. Next one is Tom Waits. This is Rain Dogs. Again, huge discography. I could have picked any number of albums. This is of Tom Waits. This is his most well-known. This is Rain Dogs. Again, kind of spoken word poetry, deep raspy voice. You would recognize it when you hear at least what he sounds like. And very, very young Tom Waits. You might also have seen Tom Waits in some films. He's a very good actor as well. Anyway, this is really good. This is kind of folksy, sea shanty, poetic. Again, it'll just draw you in. His voice, the atmosphere. Oh, so good, so good. And we'll go to some early proggy rock. This is King Crimson. You've probably seen this cover and wondered, what the hell is this? This is In the Court of the Crimson King. I mentioned a guy, Robert Fripp, earlier that hung out with Brian Eno. This is his band. I think it's fair to say that, King Crimson, Robert Fripp's band. Robert Fripp's a guitarist extraordinaire from the UK, but he's not like the long hair kind of guitarist. He's like the almost shirt and tie kind of guy, right? Anyway, this is exploring prog, psychedelic, just crazy fusion of sounds. Very, very good album. Highly recommend. King Crimson had a whole career, and it kind of has had many famous musicians, drummers. Dave Brubeck. Dave Brubeck? No, that's wrong. The guy from Yes. Beaufort. Anyway, I can't remember everything. There's too much going on in my head right now with what's going on in the real world. But anyway, trust me, if you're not familiar with this album, get it. King Crimson. Then we go to some German electronica from the beginnings. This is Crosswork. This is Trans-Europe Express. Again, I could have picked any number of albums, but this is their sort of classic. This is the beginnings of electronic music. Just a fabulous, again, atmospheric, just going to draw you in. The sounds, you think you're on a train. Just wonderful, wonderful. Kraftwerk, highly recommend it. And I'm going to end with, maybe some people would recognize Van Morrison and maybe some of the latter day albums that are out today. But if you really want to get a taste into very experimental Van Morrison, then I take you back to, this is either album 2 or 3, depending on how you combine the first releases. This is Astral Weeks. This is his psych. Again, I must be into poetry today. Very poetic, very explaining, you know, the city scenes of his youth growing up in Belfast, combined with psychedelia and again, just this great spoken word in parts, and fantastic studio musicians. And yeah, if you've never heard Astral Weeks, give it a listen. Fantastic. Yeah, so there you go. Guys, don't take it serious. This is just my opinion. This is, I think, if you're just starting out, if you've only sort of dipped your toe into music, and maybe you're a young person and you don't, you know a lot of, older stuff, or where different types of genres started. Anyway, guys, have a good one. See you soon. Bye.